This is a video on how or why I became an atheist. My entire life, for as far as I can remember being able to speak, because I can remember times in my life where I couldn't actually speak English, even though I understood it, I couldn't say anything really back. I've always questioned why things happen. I remember when I was maybe 9, it was the first time I'd ever heard about evolution, and I never really read into it because I was only 9, and the concept seemed pretty well thought out. Things change slowly over time. Well, that makes sense because, I can't make perfect observations when I'm that age, but I see rocks, and I know that rocks wither slowly over time, so why wouldn't species slowly change over time? Makes perfect sense. But then I actually learned that they aren't really related, but I guess, you could consider that a pretty good example for somebody who's a 9-year-old. And, I always grew up in a really, really religious type of community, and they from Kentucky, they actually taught religion in schools when I was in school, but that stopped about the time I hit about 5th grade. They stopped doing that. One of my favorite teachers was my science teacher in 9th grade, and I'll get to my point here in a little bit, but I just have to say this. And she said, I can't talk about what I believe, and everybody said, why not? She said, because it's not allowed. And I said, well, the whole class was just saying, well, just say it. And she said, well, I believe in God, and everybody was just like, well, most people do, big deal. But that's just a random note. A teacher I have a lot of respect for because she really did believe in keeping church and state separate to the point where she shouldn't even mention God at all. And but I always grew up my entire life questioning things. Why do things happen? Why do ants organize? Why do trees? Why is the color of the leaves green? If you want to know, it's because green carries the wavelength for green carries less energy than the rest of them. Thus, the green ones had more energy and got to reproduce better and faster. Thus, that's why we have green leaves on green trees. Well, the bark's brown. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I just kept continuing to question things, and my entire life, all adults had told me was the Bible is the infallible Word of God. It is absolutely and 100% true. Well, adults, for as long as I could remember before 15, never really lied to me. Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, some little kiddie stuff, but aside from that, they never really lied to me. So one day, somebody quoted the Bible and said, when I was in church, evolution isn't real, and all I could think was, but it's pretty much scientific fact. But, then they kept saying, I said, and I even asked my preacher afterwards, well, why is this if it's generally accepted? Well, the Bible doesn't preach that. Well, if the Bible's the infallible Word of God, but it doesn't even understand basic scientific concepts, then how can it be infallible? Well, I was about 14, 15. I began reading the Bible at about this time, and turns out, after I read it, I became an atheist because I realized this isn't true. This is all bullshit. They don't know what they're talking about. It's just the best science. And then I researched it further, and it's pretty much just the best scientific knowledge at that time that it was written, which isn't very advanced at all. So yeah, that's why I became an atheist. But in case other people might get on here and say, well, why didn't you read other religious texts? I did, and the more I read them, I gave it so many fallibilities before I wouldn't accept it, and I think the number was actually 3. I can't remember exactly how many, but after it hit 3 things that were just completely not true or contradicted itself, I just put the book down and said, yeah, that's all bullshit too. And that's why I became an atheist, because I never would have been religious in the first place if I would have read the Bible and then began observing the world. I would have became an atheist before I was even 9 years old. I would have said, this is bullshit. I don't believe this. But anyway, I just figured I'd post this video.